Well, I figured out where all the fun in California went. Right there in the right lane. Welcome to Pacifica, California. Traffic here was actually not very bad. $100,000 fine for illegal fireworks. 1,000, I'm just kidding. Little known fact, Pacifica is one of the few cities in the San Francisco Bay Area where fireworks are legal and you can buy and possess them. Jurisdiction is determined at the county level for fireworks here in California. Huh. I don't know what that special plate is for. Need to get some gasoline sometime soon. Well, I got 50 miles left. So no cause for alarm. Hey, look, it's the ocean. And if you want to know what a hippie looks like in 2018, there you go. Chevy Bolt with a surf rack. If this were 40 years ago, that would be a VW bus. Oh God, here comes an asshole in a Camaro. Here we go. God damn it. Oh wait, that's not a Camaro, that's a Scion TC, isn't it? Rev it up, buddy! Let's see if I can antagonize him. With his no catalytic converter having ass. I missed my stop because I was distracted. My destination was on the right. It's not anymore. Well, that took long enough. Brrr. I love to be that guy with a noisy exhaust who complains about other people's noisy exhaust. Brrr. That is not a TRD car. Bombs. Not really. I bet it's gonna be really expensive though. Is that the same Tesla I just saw? Pretty weird to get cut off by a Tesla. You almost never see that. Like usually Tesla drivers are really civil. I've actually never seen a Tesla speeding before. I mean, like crazy speeding. I mean, everybody in California speeds a little bit, but I've never seen them driving recklessly. I never speed, of course. YouTube police. Hey, there's a van again. Cool. glad to see there are still some of those around and down by the beach. Although really these days, there's no reason to have one because there are like regular cars that have the same cargo capacity that you can easily convert to a camper. That sea air smells so lovely. I'm gonna not get stuck with my butt hanging out. I'm not gonna go around this guy either. Clean air vehicle. I've never seen one of the red ones before. Alright, let's see what I can find for parking. Chances are I will have to wait a while for a parking space. Tandier. Okay, this is a slightly what the fuck moment. This guy in this express van is just sitting here with his flashers on and his reverse lights. I'm guessing he wants that spot right there where those people are getting ready to leave. But I don't think I would sit there in reverse. Oh, and now he's decided he's gonna go. Nice. He's like, oh no, the guy in the Ford's gonna go around me. This parking lot is always a shit show. I never arrive here thinking I'm just gonna jump out of the car. What are you doing? It's not like someone's getting ready to back out. Of course. This is what happens when you give up. You just stop and put your fucking flashers on. So the parking machine is not working. I'm just going to assume that there's no pay for parking today because it's impossible to pay for parking. And this right here is why it's so expensive to live in the Bay Area. This shit right here. This is one of the good surfing beaches in California. What I didn't know the first time I came out here is that you're not actually supposed to swim where they're surfing because apparently they're concerned that they'll mow you down with their surfboard. So if you want to swim, you have to go like way down out there where they're not surfing. Holy shit, stop feeding your dog. It's all right. One more treat won't hurt him. This beach is one of the places I like to take people to figure them out socially, because there are a number of different interaction opportunities all compressed into one place. There's a beach that you can walk on or not give a shit about. There's a Taco Bell, so I can find out if they're going to be so snooty that they don't like to eat fast food. And as you can see up ahead, there's a fairly steep trail that I can walk them on to see if they're going to complain or pass out halfway up. There's something you don't see in Oklahoma. So when we get up to this trailhead up here, you'll see that there are a couple of ways that you can take up and a couple of ways you can take back down. Whoa, that was a cool curl. Some are more challenging, some are less challenging, and some offer better views than others. So down this way, you've got some people that are waiting. There aren't as many surfers down here. These are things that you're not ever going to learn by looking at Google Maps and going, wow, let me just read the reviews. You actually have to get here and make the mistake yourself, and then you find out. I mean, because sometimes the only way that you're going to learn something is by having other people complain when you do it the wrong way. And that's just how life is. You know, you tend to think that when you're younger, that there's an established set of rules that everybody just goes by. And to some extent that's true, but it's not always true. A lot of times there are gray areas, as people call them. And the older you get, the more the gray areas come into play. Like, there may be the official rule that you're supposed to follow, and then there's the way that things actually happen. And the only way to see how things actually happen that aren't in accordance with rules is to follow the rules until you make the mistake of following the wrong rule, and then you know to not follow that rule anymore, or to follow the modified version of the rule that everyone else is following. Hey, if you find a bar of gold, I lost one in this area here. That was something that my foster grandmother on my mom's side used to really be into, is she really liked metal detectors. And when I was a kid, we couldn't actually afford a metal detector, and she wanted me to have one so bad that she got a magnet from an old speaker and just wired it to the end of a stick. And of course, I was 4 years old, so I didn't know the difference. I thought it was really cool. I thought it had a metal detector. So I went out and played with it. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I found out that metal detectors actually detect metal. They don't just stick to them. It's another one of those things that you learn as you get older, is that parents, friends, and relatives are going to take advantage of your naivety when you're a child. That's a cork. 800-750-8828. Barefoot wine. You learn when you're older that people take advantage of your nativity. Some people figure it out earlier. I was gullible much of my young adult life, and I just assumed that people were trustworthy all the time. Because it took me a while to figure out what the signs were to look for to see whether or not someone was trustworthy. Because of these signs, you can't go up in that area because it's a wildlife reserved area. It takes a while to figure out that it's not necessarily whether or not a particular person is trustworthy. It's how much of their own personal security do they have to lose before they're willing to sacrifice yours. There's a Gucci sandal. Interesting. Too bad there's not two of them. Because, you know, as Scrooge McDuck says, everyone has their price. There's a point at which a person will become so enticed or so desperate. Hey, smartphone. It's an old iPhone. Pretty cool. Looks like either an iPhone 5 or an iPhone SE. Huh. Not the first time I found a smartphone on this beach, actually. I found one that looked like it had been submerged for a while and dried out. It had dried out enough that I guess it just started working again because I was able to open up the address book. And I called people in the phone book until I got someone who spoke English. And I said, hey, I found this phone. Do you know who it belongs to? And they said, where did you find it? And I told them I found it on the beach in Pacifica. And they were like, yeah, one of my cousins lost that phone months ago. And I was like, well, can you describe it? And she was like, well, it's got scratches here and there. And it has these apps installed. And they were able to identify it, and they gave me an address, so I just put it in an envelope and dropped it in a mailbox for them. So nativity is a problem that has infinite diminishability, because the problem is that no matter how smart you are, no matter how much you know, there's always going to be things that you don't know. There'll be processes that you don't understand. There'll be information that you're not privy to. And you'll forget. You will learn things and then you'll forget. So you're always gullible, no matter how confident you are. And as a matter of fact, the more confident you are, the more gullible you are. So let me tell you a story about gullibility. Since my brother and I left high school, we've probably talked maybe 5 times. And in those times that we talked, our conversations were fairly brief, and they were usually over some form of instant messenger. Because he hides from people, hides from his family, hides from his friends. Except for his one best friend, BJ. And so he messages me out of the blue about every 4 or 5 years. And the last time he did, he said, I want to tell you something. You remember how when you were a kid, you used to lose your shoes all the time? But you'd only ever lose one shoe? And I said, yeah, I mean, that drove me crazy. I felt so irresponsible because I was losing shoes all the time, but just one shoe, and I had no idea what was going on. And what was really weird is, one time I found a shoe just in a bar ditch, like 3 blocks from the house. There's no way I could have put it there. And he goes, oh yeah, well, the first time you lost a shoe after you were born, Mom and Dad took us to Walmart and got us both a new pair of shoes. And what I figured out was, because we lived a significant driving distance from the nearest department store where we could buy shoes, to save a trip whenever they would buy you a new pair of shoes, they would buy me a pair of shoes too. And then from then on, whenever I wanted a new pair of shoes, I would just hide one of your shoes. And I said, wow. And then I closed the IM window. And I haven't talked to my brother since then. And it's not for not having tried to initiate a conversation with him anymore. When he went into the army, they sent him off to Africa, and when he came back, he was a changed person. He had severe PTSD. He said that he saw some things that were committed by humans that he didn't realize humans were capable of, and that it had sort of disenfranchised him from the human race, I guess you could say. Well, I think that last conversation where he admitted that thing about the shoes to me was sort of his way of saying goodbye. Naivety. Naivety in two forms. The first one was that when I was young, I didn't realize that my brother was hiding my shoes from me. And the second was that it took me years and years to figure out that that was his way of saying goodbye. He lived with my father for a while in the tiny, tiny town where he and I lived shortly after we were born. And then he got rid of as much of his stuff as he could, left his phone on the kitchen table, and disappeared. And through family of his best friend, my father was able to figure out where he was living. He was staying with his best friend, and has made multiple trips up there to try to meet with him. Gone to the guy's house several times, and my brother wouldn't come out. So he doesn't talk to me, he doesn't talk to our father. Gullibility. Check out that view. Now, I took half the difficult route and half the easy route. The paved part is the easy route. The difficult route actually goes up over the top of that plateau there. Let's actually go up there, because I want to show you the view from there as well. I came to this beach numerous times before I ever bothered to walk up to the top of this hill, which is, you know, it's I guess in a way kind of melancholy, because the best view is actually up there. We're going that way. Hello. One of the little things that they typically don't tell you before you start hiking is whenever you see someone on a trail, you're supposed to say something to them, because that way it doesn't feel weird. Apparently to some people it feels weird if they walk by a person on a trail and that person doesn't say anything. which I suppose is normal because, you know, people naturally engage in small talk, even if you only see each other briefly. And I suppose it's especially important if it's just you and them alone together on a trail, because the tone of your voice lets them know that you're not a creeper. This hill keeps on going up this way. So I have, wow, somebody's hollering. I have strong legs because I tend to fidget a lot when I'm sitting down. So, what the hell? Oh, they're just messing around. All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah. I can walk all day long and never get tired, as long as it's on a fairly easy grade. If I start going uphill or downhill, my abs start to get tired because my abdominals are relatively weak. We're gonna go up here to this little point. Look at that. Would you call that azure? Cerulean? I suppose the crayon color would be sea foam, although that's cheating, really. battery in the GoPro died. Good thing I brought that second battery. Anyways, they say, Magic, if you don't believe in God, then you must be atheist. And I say, no. In order to be atheist, one has to participate in religion, because atheism is a religion. If you look at Wikipedia under the religion category, you will see atheists listed there. Sandburrs on your butt are a trivial problem at the beach. So, in order to not participate in religion, you have to be comfortable with the fact that there is not a definition for what you are. Because, as Alan Watts was fond of saying, trying to define yourself is like trying to chew your own teeth. I don't feel like religion is something that I need to participate in. And people say, Magic, what about that sticker on your car window, the one that says, God bless our truckers? To which I say, I may not be religious, but I know people who are. Some of them I care about very much. My father is one of those people, although I question whether he is hypocritically Christian, because he has hinted at times that he doesn't actually believe in God, and that he just says so because he's afraid that there might be a God. And if there is, he doesn't want to be the target of that God's wrath. And so, I suppose he's dogmatic or pragmatic. Religion for the sake of religion, I think, is more valuable than the practice of belief in a God. And the functions that I believe religion have are, A, it gives us a set of rituals by which to run our lives. If you get up and go to church, there's a sense of community because you are in community with the other people who go to the church. And also because it's an exception handler for the human mind. People aren't comfortable with the idea that it's possible that when you die, everything just stops, or that there's no reason for things that seem to be coincidental. And so you have a God so that you have someone to attribute those things to. My puppy died. Why did my puppy die when I was a child? It was God's will. You don't want to think that your puppy died because your parents weren't able to afford to take it to the vet for regular visits and it got a disease that was trivial and could have easily been cured. Instead of being taken out into the backyard and shot, oops, I meant taken to the poppy farm upstate. And so your parents attribute the death of the puppy to God. It was God's will. It was his time. And as you age, you're expected to take the same consideration about when your relatives die of old age. And speaking of which, there's no such thing as dying of old age. Old age is not a disease. When you die of old age, generally you die from a brain hemorrhage or heart failure or a stroke or some sort of, problem that people tend to have as they age. People just say that your relative died of old age because it's nicer than saying, well, your parent had a heart attack in the middle of the night and they lay there clutching themselves paralyzed in terrifying fear until they died, because nobody wants to hear that. Dying of old age is a much more comfortable way of accepting it. People don't understand or don't want to accept the process of death, and many people don't understand death as it actually is. Most people assume, based on what they've seen in movies, that when you die, you just fall over and then you go to heaven. Well, that's not what happens. Most people, when they die, they're actually conscious for some time after their body stops functioning. And they're lying there wondering what's going on. For example, if you have a stroke or a heart attack in the middle of the night and you wake up and you're in the process of dying, your body is quitting on you, your extremities give in long before your internal organs do. And so, if your body were functional, you might be able to get up and call for help. But if your extremities are non-functional, or if you have a gunshot wound and it injures your spine and you can't move, there's a good chance that you could be alive for a few minutes, half an hour, or even up to several hours. And even after you stop breathing, there is a period called the golden hour during which you could still be alive. They say that if someone has a heart attack or a stroke, there's an hour during which you can save them. And that's the reason for life flight helicopters, is that they want to be able to get someone to a hospital where they can save them within that 1 hour. Anyways, on a less morbid topic, I've been to this beach many times. When I was living with Spot, I used to come here at least once a week. And there was a period there for a couple of weeks where I would get up early in the morning and I would drive to this beach every single day. And I would walk up and down this trail. I would sit on the beach. And I come here a lot less now because, well, I don't have as much time because I'm working now. And also money is a concern. So, you know, the cost for gas. But this is kind of a, I guess you could say it's one of those places I go to let go of stuff. There are so many different sensory experiences. There's noise from the traffic. There's walking on the beach and feeling the sand underneath your shoes. There's the cool breeze, sun, smell of the evergreens, and the saltiness of the ocean mixing with the savory scent of the sagebrush. It is uniquely Californian. And when I left California to go back to Oklahoma for a while, it's one of the things that I missed the most. When I was a child, I would see beaches on television and they seemed like faraway fantasy worlds, as if they were someplace I could never go, because, you know, I grew up in Oklahoma, which is a landlocked state, and there aren't any beaches. People just don't really think about going to the beach in Oklahoma because it's so far off unless they're going on a vacation. And then when they are on vacation, when they go to a beach, it's a significant event because they don't get to see them any other time. But what I found very profound when I actually got to California is that people who live in California don't actually care about the beach at all because they can go anytime they want. I was like, and it was the same thing in Maine. I had never seen the ocean before I went to Maine. And I was like, I've got to see the ocean. I want to see the ocean. It's going to be a profound experience. And people were like, we can go to the beach anytime. Let's go bowling. And I was like, no, I want to go to the beach. I've never seen the ocean. And I went and saw the ocean at Maine. And I was expecting it to look like all the beaches that I'd seen on TV because all the movies were that have beaches are filmed like in California or tropical places. And it was not. The beaches in Maine were gravelly and the water was cold all the time. So I went to Walmart and got a pair of swimming trunks and I went to the beach and I was gonna go swimming and they're like, you're not gonna go swimming for very long. And I was like, why not? And they go, you'll see. So I got undressed, got my shorts on, jumped in the water and immediately jumped right back out. Then I stood shivering for a minute and then I went back in the water because I was determined to enjoy the experience that I had waited years and years and years to have. And I got colder and I got colder and then I finally got out of the water and said, this is not the beach I was expecting. And then we got in the car and went home. Naivety. And then I came to California years later. It was always my intent when I was younger to live in Silicon Valley. And
when I was in grade school and high school, I always thought that I would learn to be a programmer, and that I would go to college, get a degree in computer science, and then I would move to Silicon Valley to do programming for a living. But then one day I finally sat down with a C++ instruction manual and tried to write some code. And I discovered that writing software and just writing code in general requires a lot of being good at math. And I'm not very good at math. And I tried and I tried and I tried, but I couldn't wrap my head around it. And so I did eventually make it to Silicon Valley, but it wasn't the way I was planning, and it wasn't when I expected. But nevertheless, now I live in San Jose. And here we are back at the parking lot.